Two very special guests are joining me. Dr. Ophir Falk is Foreign Policy Advisor in the Prime Minister's office in Tel Aviv, and Fleur Hassan Nahum is Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. Appreciate you, both of you, joining us. Fleur, why don't you start first? Give us a sense of how you see what is evolving. Do you believe that a hostage swap is possible? That should Israel go into Gaza without the safety of its own hostages, its own citizens first?
Well, first of all, you have to understand the trajectory that we've had over the last 4 days. We've gone from terrible surprise, trauma, to what happened to the attack. Everybody's been affected personally by this. We're in a small country and everybody knows somebody. I myself am very friendly with the mother of a boy who's actually one of the hostages. He's also an American citizen. And we've gone from 2 days of complete shock and trauma to evolving into now defiance. And of course, Israel's obligation, it's mainly to its citizens, of course, the captured hostages, and to dismantle the terrorist infrastructure. And this is what the Prime Minister has said, if we don't dismantle the terrorist infrastructure, then we've achieved nothing and they can attack us again. We're talking about a barbaric regime, an ISIS regime, which is the long arm of Iran. They will stop at nothing. They have zero value for life, not even their own. So why would they have value for our life? And Israel has to do whatever it needs to do to secure our citizens and to get our people back home.
Let me just take that specifically what you just said to Dr. Ophir Falk, because what it means, Dr. Ophir, is that you want to secure your citizens who are being held hostage by Hamas. At the same time, you want to virtually lay a siege over Gaza. Hamas is threatening to execute the hostages if buildings are pounded, but there is no let up at the moment in your attack on Gaza. How do you play it? How do you ensure that your citizens who are being held hostage, their lives are secure even while you attack Gaza?
Well, let me make this thing very clear. On October 7th, 2023, the Hamas waged war on Israel, an unprecedented war of barbarism. They've murdered close to 1,000 civilians, men, women, children, grandchildren. Hamas is ISIS. In fact, Hamas is ISIS on steroids. What they did is very similar to what you experienced in November 2008 in Mumbai, only on a scale of 50 times more. Over 1,000 citizens have been murdered, close to 1,000 innocent civilians have been murdered by these barbaric savages. Their goal was, one, to kill Jews, as many Jews as they could, to kidnap men, women, children, grandchildren, and to derail the peace prospects that Prime Minister Modi presented in the recent G20. Israel is on a counteroffensive now. It will be a counteroffensive that Hamas has never experienced before. Their capabilities will be dismantled. They will never be able to do such a thing again. We highly appreciate the support provided by world leaders around the world, from Prime Minister Modi, from President Biden, from almost every leader in the world that is trying to reach out to us, and we appreciate that significantly. This is a war of civilized states versus savages, and we are going to win this war. We have no other choice, and we will win this war.
Where does that leave, as I said, Dr. Falk, the hostages that are being held? They are Israeli citizens. We don't know how many of them. Do we know how many of them are being held hostage, and what happens to their security and safety? In the past, Benjamin Netanyahu has even negotiated for one Israeli soldier who was held hostage a decade ago.
Any person who hurts any of the hostages will die. That's clear. We will dismantle the capabilities of Hamas to ever attack us again in the way that they did. Never again. Never again. This is a war, again, civilized states against barbarian savages.
Flair Hassan Naum, you're hearing these strong words. Are you concerned that this war could now escalate out of control as some fear? There could be the Hezbollah could get involved from the Lebanon, Israel-Lebanon border. Iran could get involved. Is that a fear that you have? And more and more innocent civilians will be caught in the crossfire.
Well, clearly, Hamas and Hezbollah in the north are proxies of Iran, clearly. Hamas's budget is 93% of Hamas's budget comes from Iran. That's one of the reasons that Hamas is not only ISIS, it's ISIS on steroids, being sponsored by a state entity, a terrorist state entity, by the way.
Right.
And the equation has changed, sir. The equation has changed. We are not in a military operation or a tit for tat. This is a war. This is a war of civilized states against savages, and we will win this war. We are very, very, very appreciative that the people of India, the Prime Minister of India, have expressed their unequivocal support for Israel and for humanity. We appreciate that. This is a war that will last as long as it is needed.
Right.
To last until we dismantle Hamas.
Flair Hassan, now let me take what I just heard from Dr. Falk forward. Do you fear, as Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, an escalation of this war in which more innocent civilians could die? Or do you believe this is the only way to send a message to Hamas after what's happened on the weekend?
Well, first of all, we live in Jerusalem, in a very delicate city. As you know, 40% of our population here is Muslim Arab, and we have enhanced the presence of our security forces. We know that we have some very small radical Hamas sleeper cells in the city, and we have our finger on the pulse. And so far, everything has remained calm. I think the Israeli forces are doing a wonderful job in ensuring that we don't have more fronts opening up for Israel. But even if they do, Israel is prepared for anything. We use a fraction of our power because we actually have a decent moral code, and we do everything that we can to avoid civilian casualties. But if we are pushed and tugged, then we will use it. And let me just tell you something else. And I completely agree with Dr. Falk. This is a civilizational war. We're talking about the long arm of Iran. Iran is a country and a regime that is killing its own women, its own people. Iran wants to take the world back 500 years. And it's no coincidence that this is happening right now when Israel had a very clear roadmap for peace with Saudi Arabia. This is the last thing that Hamas wants. This is the last thing that Iran wants, Israel to normalize with the rest of the Arab world, because then the region will be divided in two regions, the countries that want peace and prosperity and the countries that want destruction and radicalism. And we all know which side Israel is on, and I hope the world understand which side Hamas is on. It's on Iran's side, and Iran is not just a threat to us, it's a threat to the entire world.